The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Fast am I. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Open line today. On Friday, it was all Home Affairs and Justice. Jane Paul Wilson, MHK, and Dan Davis, the Minister and the Chief Exec of Justice and Home Affairs. We got through quite a lot. There's a few other questions that I will pose, even if they're not here, but it's just something we'd like to air. So thanks for everything. And indeed, if you want to follow up on what was said on Friday, by all means, do get in touch. In fact, right at the end of Mannin Line on Friday, of course, Jane Paul Wilson is one of the middle MHKs, and you heard the other one about 20 minutes ago. She was talking about the speed limit through Glenvine and through Crosby, and one correspondent said 20 miles an hour for that, because some people do race through Glenvine and Crosby. It's a built-up area during the hotspots, if you like, morning and afternoon. But other than that, well, apart from it being the main road between Douglas and Peel, but I just wonder what you think if you live along there, indeed if you drive along there. You got any thoughts on that? A speed limit or speed cameras? Dan Davis said no speed cameras on the Isle of Man, and at the moment conversations, he said, but no firm plans for a speed camera. Just to reiterate, there is kind of conspiracy stuff about there being speed cameras, or maybe that the police have mobile speed cameras. What do you think about it all? Now, what's going to happen is the remotest chance, says Richie, 776 Richie, that Tim Crookhall or anybody else in the Manx Utilities Authority will contract for the order for wind farm equipment before the planning process has gone through, or indeed even before it started. Now, is this going to happen? What's going to happen? You've heard this story about the fact that the rumour that they've ordered equipment already. Now, is that because it takes, a couple of years for it to arrive, and you're best to get the order through? Indeed, if we waited till the planning permission arrives and either says yes or no, do we then order and get stuck waiting at the end of the queue, or do we put the order in now? Any thoughts? And Helen just said yes again. Let's get tough with speeding. Every other car through Crosby is over the limit. They have those indicative signs, don't they, with a smile and a frown as you're heading through Crosby. But Helen says we should have big fines and points on people's. And again, getting back to one of my old hobby horses, and that of disabled spaces, car parking spaces for people with disabilities. If you're going to have a fine, surely the fine has to be prohibitive. Otherwise, that just becomes a cost for people who can afford to park in disabled spaces, or people who can afford, bluntly, to speed. So, thoughts on this? And also, Dan Davis, if you like, drew the curtain back about the cost of drug driving tests to the Exchequer. The previous Chief Constable bemoaned the fact that his forensic budget was disappearing because of the £700 to £1,000 it costs for a drug test. And obviously, no doubt, the current Chief Constable, Russ Foster, will talk about this. He's on just before Christmas. But it's something that's arrived comparatively recently, and drug driving tests cost an awful lot of money. We don't have facilities on the Isle of Man, and you hear the Chief Executive say we don't have the throughput. We don't nick enough people for drug driving to make it feasible to have a drug testing facility on the Isle of Man. Gary in Ramsey said, look, if convicted, I think drug drivers should have the cost of the test put on them on top of their fines. If somebody's going to drive while disabled, if you like, through drugs, surely they have to know what the cost is. If it's costing us £1,000 for the test, make it part of the costs when they're convicted. Gary in Ramsey on 921. Julian's on today. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Interesting also with the wind farm, the comments from Alistair Ramsey on Friday regarding onshore wind farm plans here is invalid, as they haven't been a vote from Tynwald or a referendum from us. Kind of reminds me a bit of the purloining of that £1 million from the horse trams without permission from Tynwald as well.
I think they'll say reallocation with that.
Right, yeah.
Yes. It's all,
by the way.
It's all semantics, isn't it?
I know. I noticed, by the way, that New York Governor Kathy Hochul has stopped Ørsted from trying to double the price that they will charge on their new wind farm, which has resulted in a further 10% drop in their share value. So there won't be much left of it, I think, the way they're going.
Well, I think the shenanigans, if you like, or the negotiations over the price for electricity is going to become more and more apparent. I mean, a lot of the subsidies are falling away from this, so we're getting to a point. I mean, I noticed yesterday, I was watching those grid watch figures over the weekend. I mean, the UK, by their figures, was getting 39% of its electricity from wind power over the weekend. So, with the, if you like, the market maturing where that's concerned, I think the negotiations over the price paid for electricity will become even sharper.
I think, though, that I think people are realising, though, about the other 4/5 for heating, for about at least half of the year, which isn't taken into account from wind farms. It's just the electric that does your lights and your oven and things. But
of course, yeah, that's it. And obviously the base load, when you get, I mean, solar panels don't do anything for the majority of the day currently, and the UK has got some solar power, but obviously there'll need to be a base load when people are putting the electric ovens on. Yeah,
like geothermal offers. Anyway, first off, Luton Airport car park last week, somebody made a comment that it had gone quiet. If anyone searches for Canarian Weekly Luton Airport, this newspaper is reporting on a statement from Luton Authority Emergency Services that the seat of the fire was located at a Tesla charging point on the top floor of the car park. But interestingly, the next morning, the Daily Express Online and Autocar reported on a story showing a diesel hybrid Land Rover on fire at Glasgow Airport. And I saw that live when it was going on. But those two articles were deleted within a couple of hours from the internet, which would suggest a D notice, or I think it's a DSMA notice now, had been served on the two websites, which effectively made the story disappear, which seems a little bit strange. I noticed, by the way, that the UK Land Rover website, all the vehicles now that are on offer are either hybrids or full EV. There are no just ordinary diesels available.
On the UK Land Rover?
Yeah, if you look on landrover.co.uk, every single car that you can configure is either a mild hybrid, a full hybrid, or a full electric. There is no just diesel.
Really? I mean, is that? Yeah. I wonder what the situation's like through the dealers nowadays. Whether you can actually buy an old diesel. Are these Defenders? Are they Range Rovers? What are they?
Well, the whole range. I mean, I look from everything Range Rover Sports to Defenders to Discoveries. Everything is either MHEV, PHEV, or electric. So they don't seem to be offering anything other than that, from what I can see from their website now. I mean, you could buy a second-hand older one, but look like the lighting cluster on the one, if it is at Glasgow Airport, look like one of the new ones with the hybrid, which is under the passenger side, just behind the front wheel, which is probably why there was fire pouring out from the front left-hand side, but the back of the vehicle wasn't on fire, which is evident from the video. So it can't be the fuel tank, because the diesel fuel tank's at the back of the vehicle, isn't it?
Well, and you say, I mean, as far as you can make out, these were deleted.
Yeah, gone. I was looking at them, and if you go looking for it now, it has completely deleted. But there are a few websites that are showing, videos of the actual fire, and then the camera pans to the right, and it's got the rainbow sort of Glasgow Airport sign as it pans round. So it's definitely Glasgow. I'll finish off my point because I know there'll be other people probably calling in. Regarding Dan Davis's final comment on last Friday's Mannin Line regarding the pandemic accord and the 300 plus amendments to the international health regulations, his final sentence, I'll quote it, "I would probably say it wouldn't compromise the sovereignty of the Isle of Man in this case. But what concerns me is the removal of the words non-binding from the international health regulations, which effectively makes it binding. It's a bit like taking out the word voluntary. It would basically mean the opposite. also the removal of the existing sentence in the International Health Regulation, which reads, with full respect for the dignity, human rights and fundamental freedoms of persons. So I find those two removals quite concerning, really. And then the other legal instrument, which is this new pandemic treaty called the Pandemic Prevention, Preparedness and Response Accord, is on an opt-out basis. So doing nothing is opt-in, a bit like organ donation. And that will be for remote control from the World Health Organization, who, remember, are based in Geneva, which gives them diplomatic immunity from prosecution. I just think Tynwald needs to clarify, because the opt-out expires in 1.5 months on December 1st, and the full power will be in 6 months and 2 weeks in May of next year.
But Dan Davis said that, and I think Jane Paul Wilson also said that, obviously our Parliament, our Tynwald, that it will have to go. I mean, our Tynwald can, if you like, opt us out of that. Yeah, I mean, I just like clarification, which is what I was asking Jane. Do we follow the UK, or do we have our own separate option? I mean, can we opt out and the UK doesn't? So the UK goes in, but we don't, for example. I mean, that would be useful information. At the final little bit, to get a feel for what the World Health Organization's governing body is saying on this, the bit above them is called the World Health Assembly. And if you have a look on the WHO's YouTube channel, look for Live from WHA 76. And particularly interesting at the WHA 76 meeting, if you go in 8 minutes into that video, WHA member Ayodi Alakia suggests that the average John in the street should be issued with a book called Pandemic Accord for Dummies. And personally, I think I'll just keep an eye on the original text of the document and make my own mind up. But it's a very revealing video as to how they sort of think everyone is going to be, nannied in the future. Interesting. Okay. All right, Julian. Thanks for calling. Thanks very much, Andy. Cheers. All right. A note in from Judith, who just said, we're getting close to November the 5th, so could you ask your guest, this was for Friday, to run through the laws regarding fireworks, says Judith. I'm sorry we didn't get to that. Unfortunately, that came in too late in the programme. We were snowed under with messages on Friday and calls as well. But certainly the laws regarding fireworks, no doubt the newsroom will be looking at that as we get ever closer through to the big day for fireworks. And also, going through Union Mills by the Spa is horrendous, says Sam. People fly through Union Mills. We definitely need speed cameras, obviously, as the road comes down from Strang, and it's a very busy junction, and Lurgy Crippety feeds into that as well. Thank you, Sam. You got any thoughts on the road through? It was Jane Paul Wilson talking about speed cameras through Crosby and Glenvine. Any thoughts? And David's on now. Hi, David.
Hi, Randy. I just want to talk. You're talking about the DOI and road signs and the issue of the happy face one, the 30-mile-an-hour sign that says you're doing more. I've asked the DOT in the past, why can't we have the information from these particular units that put in a certain place? We have them in Rain Road, Onken, going out towards the White Bridge there. And if you just sit there for about 10, 15 minutes, going through the centre of the village and out towards the White Bridge there, the activation over 30 miles an hour is definitely a lot. And I asked the question, why can't we get a recorder in there that tells me how many have done over 30, how many have done 40, how many have done 60 or whatever? And I've not been able to get an answer back from the DOI, but I want to give them a bit of praise for, at a port of the Hilbury crossing, the lights shining on the road, the white light, not the beacon light, but that was actually fixed today. And I got a nice email, I won't mention his name, from a fella from the DOI saying it's all down to money to get things upgraded. So I just wondered, where does the DOI come in then for safety, Andy? If a crossing is not functioning right and it needs an upgrade, and these new on the beacons there are LEDs now which go round and are more brighter and attracts your attention to it, how do we quantify safety and that maybe a loss of a life or an accident happen to mean getting things done.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think this has been mentioned before. If you're like a road safety piece of infrastructure is out of commission, I mean, there's no liability on the department, is there? If anything happens.
Sorry, Andy, I was going to say, if you draw it to their attention, which I did last week, and it doesn't get fixed and an accident happens, I'm sure there's a liability or comparable liability. But I'm not blaming the DO. There's a lot of work on, but at the top of the echelons then, the boys would say, it's up to the bosses to tell us what there are. So my plea out there is to say to people, if zebra crossing beacons or the lights above them, which are the white lights that illuminate the crossing, especially when we come towards the winter now, we need to get into them all the time and record it, email in, or whatever we do. And if I could just quickly flip, sorry about this, but I was astounded to listen to a thing saying that Douglas Corporation or the city now is going to take the plaques off the cemetery. If it's the one I'm thinking about, I used to live in Williston as a boy, grew up there. There was what we call a place at the back of the cemetery was for cremations, plaques, with names and messages from families and stuff like that. How can that happen when you actually buy the plaque and you get permission to put it on the wall? Now, I can't remember. I must have relations in there and stuff like that. I can't remember if I've still got a certificate, but some people will come on and say to you, well, we bought the burial plot, or we bought the cremation certificate, which required us to put a plaque on a wall for it. How can they do this to people who may be not aware what's going to happen?
Well, they're saying that, they've confirmed that older plaques aren't going to be removed, but now you basically get a 10-year rent. You get a 10-year lease on this, £85 every 10 years.
But it didn't say it at the time. I wish I could find, you don't keep things, do you? I should do, but there will be people out there, or people who are smarter than me, will have kept what the corporation said to you. Like I've got the ones for the burial plots, and it says that you buy the plot. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I just wondered what in terms that gives you regarding ownership. Things you can do. And I just don't want people getting stressed out that when they come to have, they do these searches, for your family history, and then all the plaques are gone.
Just going back to the Whitebridge speed thing, there must be technology in there that censors if it's over 30. So as you say, surely it wouldn't be any sort of burden to just put something over there that counts how many times it's triggered to be over 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, they do remember the little strips they put in the road? They put two of them in. You get wonderful details of how many trucks have gone over, how many bicycles have gone over, how many motorcycles have gone over, and all this sort of stuff. I'm just thinking, and the ones in Onken are there permanently, so there is an issue all the time, people speed, and God love us all, we do sometimes speed, don't we? But if there was something there to say to us, look, every Friday or every Saturday or every weekend, people go over the limit a great deal, then we can talk to our community police officers and get them to do something about it instead of sticking up the PC flat. Do you remember? Oh,
crikey, yes.
Do you know what I mean? And everybody knows within 20 minutes. It's and they're great. They do follow you when you look at them. When I'm not driving, you look at them, and I'm sure the eyes do move.
All right. Thanks for calling. Good to hear from you.
See you, mate. Bye-bye.
Good to hear from you. So where's your favourite PC flat? Do you remember there used to be one or perhaps two in St Mark's, and then didn't they detect somebody doing it 80 miles an hour through St Mark's? Well, this is the story about the new memorial plaques in the Garden of Remembrance in Douglas will now only be in place for 10 years. There's going to be an option to renew them at the improved price of £85 every 10 years if you want them to be kept. Otherwise, Douglas Council will remove them after the first 10 years. Now, at the moment, a plaque costs £197.90p, and those purchased until now had no end date. Douglas have confirmed older plaques won't be removed, but from now on, new regime, £197.90p and £85 every 10 years if you want to keep the plaque. Got any thoughts on that? Text, email, call, WhatsApp, and I'm looking for your favourite recipe for herring. It's a phenomenal achievement now, and I don't know whether this has sunk through to everybody. Manx fishermen have started to catch herring in Manx waters thanks to new UK quotas that can enable a commercially viable Manx fishery for the first time in 25 years. Now, obviously, there's been queenies and scallops and what have you that have been dredged, but now fishing. And this is a big thing. But for many people, this will mean next to nothing. And I'm just wondering now if anybody knows how to cook, what you do with Manx herring. What's the best dish? Well, John Moss from the news team is trying to get to the bottom of this, but I wonder if you can help. It was our Sarah Jane, the vessel Our Sarah Jane, that brought in 12 tons of herring ashore last week or so, part of an initial quota that we have of 100 tons. So that's more than 10% gone already, but hopefully that can be increased if we can find a market for it. Now, skipper is Melvin Reid, and first of all, you'll hear Andy Kinraid, who owns the boat.
So when I was a kid, the herring fishing was huge in the Isle of Man, and now we're trying to reintroduce it, hopefully into the restaurants and get people to eat Manx herring again. This year we've managed to get our own gear, our own nets, with some help from the government. We've got to do our bit now, which is actually go out and catch them. The whole thing is a fantastic experience.
I think this will be 43rd year or 44th year fishing, but all I've ever done is like scallops and queenies. Well, I think we all nearly fell over the side today. We were like kids when you can see a decent net full of herring coming behind the boat, and you think, oh, this is amazing. If we could get this 100 ton and get more next year, it would mean like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 boats could stay and catch this herring, so everybody would be happy then.
Isn't it fantastic? Manx herring being landed on Manx shores, and well done to our Sarah Jane and Eddie Kinraid and Melvin Reid and the crew. But I just wonder whether you can help then. We were trying to think earlier on today, recipes that you could use for Manx herring. You got a quick recipe, something that's been done, within 20 minutes or so, or a favourite recipe for Manx herring? Text, email, call on WhatsApp, and as I say, I know John Moss from the news department's trying to get to the bottom of this. Big tradition regarding herring in the past. Everybody talks about spuds and herring. Well, now we've got herring being landed back on the Isle of Man. Glenvine and Crosby, says Will, not as bad as the old Liverpool alarms. 40 mile an hour ignored. 70 plus is the norm past the LA Strait. No speed limit from Whitebridge past the Manx Fun Farm is a joke. Surely that's an accident waiting to happen. King Edward up to Groudle, back into Onken is a racetrack, says Will. I just wonder what your thoughts on this. And Texter 777 said, your contributor who mentioned vehicles speeding through Union Mills by the Spa shop, absolutely correct. And some of the worst culprits seems to be vans and lorries. Well, that's Tom's view on 777. Surely drivers would drive within speed limits while driving particularly marked vehicles, says Tom. The WHO doesn't have diplomatic immunity, says 475. And Nigel in Onken says also that crashes could be happening. If you're having people speeding, surely we only react when something actually happens. Why are people who park facing oncoming traffic not being issued parking tickets? This was illegal when I passed my test, and this could cause potential crashes. Regarding speeding through Crosby, Phil in Onken, I live in a residential estate in Onken, which is also an access to a primary school. The whole estate is 20 miles per hour. Is this 2nd Avenue? The speed limit is frequently ignored, particularly between 8:30 and just after 9 o'clock when the school drop-off is occurring. One vehicle in particular seems to take a great delight in putting his foot down when accessing a cul-de-sac. Ludicrous driving. In addition, cars are abandoned on junctions while they take their children to school. The only thing absent is the police as a deterrent, says Phil in Onkem. I wonder. Eat local, says this correspondent, regarding the herring. The island's crab and lobster fishermen import about 200 tonnes of herring every year for bait, which are caught by Scottish fishing boats in Norwegian waters. And regarding the herring, this year the fleet and DEFRA were focused on catching the herring in order to secure it for the long term. Otherwise, the UK Secretary of State could actually revoke the licence. So we're kind of establishing the benchmark, so they could threaten to give it to Northern Ireland fishermen. The Manx fleet caught about 80 tonnes altogether, which they should increase, we reckon, by 2026 to 400 tonnes. And also, this keeps the cost down. Massive amounts of CO2 saved as well. So there's an aim to develop Manx herring to produce roll mops and kippers, says 450, as at the moment stuff is frozen in Peterhead, freighted to Grimsby and trucked to the Isle of Man via ferry, costing about £1,200 per tonne. This can now be supplied locally. So eat local, says this correspondent, as Manx herring is now being landed on the Isle of Man.
Have you been invited to take part in the Household Income and Expenditure Survey? It's one of the most important surveys for our island because the information you provide is vital data for our island's financial planning. It helps us calculate our VAT revenue from the UK. Plus, it gives us a better understanding of the financial strains on residents, so we can support those who are struggling. If you've been invited, please take part. Visit gov.im/HIES for more information.
Spectrum Windows. If your house needs a new look and your windows let in rain, keep those cold breezes out and make it look like new again. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Quality through and through. Great work guaranteed to you. Spectrum Windows, Spectrum Windows. Spectrum Windows.
It's good to talk. It's how we get things done. So when you apply for a personal loan from Black Horse, you'll get support from one of our relationship managers who's there to talk you through your application. You could borrow up to £50,000 with up to 7 years to pay it back, and you could receive your money within 24 hours of approval. Ready to talk? Go to blackhorseoffshore.co.uk to request a call back today. Finance subject to status. Applicants must be 18 or over.
Political commentator Alistair Ramsey is known for his thoughtful assessments of issues which face our island. So what's got him so wound up lately? Alistair lets rip on this week's agenda about his deep concerns over the process which has led to the proposed site in the south for a wind farm development. An episode not to be missed on agenda this evening at 6 p.m. on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. Is Alistair right to be so concerned? Surely we've been talking about wind farms for long enough now, and it's time for action. Is Alistair right in suggesting Tynwald is not up to the job of holding government to account?
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Test by 25 to 1. Eddie's with us now. Hi, Eddie.
Yeah, good day, Andy. Just regarding speeding. A few years ago, quite a number of years ago now, I lived in Scandinavia and in Norway, and the speed limit there is only 80 kilometres an hour on the open road, which is quite a lot less than anywhere else in Europe.
That's what, 50 miles an hour, that is?
50, yeah, it's usually about 100k around the rest of Europe and about 70 in same as UK. Now, of course, Norway used to get a lot of tourists, particularly from Europe, the Germans with their camper vans and things. And they used to come along and hurtle around, and the Norwegian police used to make a fortune, actually, because they didn't have speed cameras, but they had the handheld ones. And there was quite a lot of publicity about this at the time. And a friend of mine who was Finnish, I asked him, did they have the same problem in Finland? And he said, well, no, not really. He said, we do have occasional speeders, but it's certainly not endemic. I said, well, why is that? And he said, that's because the fines are based on the person's income, a percentage. So he gave me a very good example, and it was the boss of Nokia at the time. You remember Nokia with the original mobile phones?
Oh, crikey, yeah.
All over the world. He was very wealthy. He was caught and fined €2.5 million for speeding. Now, wouldn't that be a good idea? Because if you think of, some of the cars here, the expensive cars that we've got, the minimum fine that they get is not a lot to people who can afford cars like that. However, if it was a percentage of their income, that might be a deterrent. It was just a thought I had.
Interesting. €2 million probably was about 10% of his income.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I don't know what the percentage was that they used, and I'm pretty sure they still use something of that way. I don't know whether it's still that way or not, but anyway, that's what my Finnish friend told me. So
interesting. Okay. All right. Good to hear from you. Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks a lot, Andy. Bye.
All right, 23 minutes before 1. 039 says, Andy, where can we buy herring? Can we actually buy it from the boat? Napoleon 713, Andy, potted or salted herring? Where are the retail outlets? Well, I'm sure a couple of the fishmongers sell roll mop at the moment, but it's not from the Isle of Man. Roll mop herring, does that light your fire? Not me, but lots of people love, and certainly in continental Europe, roll mop herring is absolutely everywhere. The 30-mile-an-hour traffic monitor lights need removing and taken to the nearest scrapyard. They're not accurate by a big margin of error, says David S. Manx herring now back in our waters. Just time for the closure of the Peel Smokehouse, says David S. There is a certain irony in that, isn't there, in the Moors' traditional smokehouse. But I'm guessing, I think, did Devereux's smoke... Anyway, if you know, do Devereux smoke their own herring or just buy it in? I agree with Julian 962AG on the WHO pandemic treaty danger. Government could do well to educate themselves on this matter and also to prepare a response. It's fantastic. Great news about the herring. Lovely. Grilled or barbecued and basted in marmalade. Shane Moore's Smokehouse has gone, another part of Manx heritage. Texter 775. I'll be honest with you, that herring and lime marmalade is one of my favourite sandwiches. Kippers, lime marmalade on brown bread. I drive through Strang Road every day and almost always face vans and trucks parked on the double yellow lines. Surely that's extremely dangerous, says 493. There's no passing places for oncoming traffic. The roads need monitoring daily, especially during rush hours, says Stephanie. Union Mills, Strang, Glenvine, Crosby, Greba, of course. There's no speed limit around Greba. The best place for speeding is through St Mark's and Port Sodrick. They are two racetracks, says Texter. So I think you mean the worst place for speeders anyway. Texter 614. Port Sodrick, St Mark's. Just reference to parking, says Robbo 729. Maloo Street and the Crofts in Castletown, absolutely horrendous for parking. Emergency services have no chance of getting through Maloo Street and the Crofts in Castletown. Why don't they put the memorial plaques that are taken from Douglas Cemetery, put them on the Queen's Pier in Ramsey and don't pay Douglas Council a penny? On our small modern housing estate, we have no pavements. We have no speed ramps, no 20-mile-per-hour limit, no disabled parking, and we have vans parked for weeks on end on the street, day in, day out, without moving, says Dick. In such estates, children, babies in prams, the disabled on crutches or in wheelchairs are forced to go into the road head-on to speeding cars and vans. Or, says Dick, the latest danger, mammals, middle-aged men in Lycra who think they're teenagers flying around on e-bikes all going faster than 30 miles an hour. Dick's words, not mine. Could we not have a 20-mile-an-hour limit and speed ramps in such estates without pavements, or at least a speed ramp might slow some down? You get traffic calming in new estates, but not in older estates estates which were overlooked 30-odd years ago. We've asked commissioners, the police, DOI. We've tried for years. Absolutely nothing done. Vehicles speed down Lonvain Avenue in Onken into a cul-de-sac to drop children at Bemhague School and then back up where children are walking, says G313. Douglas Council minutes state the memorial plaque should be in place for 10 years initially, and then it will be £85 for a 5-year extension, says Richard. Not 10 years. I was referring, the 20 miles an hour, says Phil, I was referring to was Birch Hill Park in Onken regarding speeding. In the evening time of an evening, Woodburn Road turns into the R-Plate racetrack. Countless hatchbacks tearing up and down well outside the speed limit, says Alfonso. Well, this is very easily remedied. It is. The technology is there, and it is to put speed cameras. The Isle of Man hitherto has voiced opposition to speed cameras. Is now the time to bite the bullet and say, yes, we should have speed cameras. The herrings, the smokehouses are all still in situ, so could the kippers be reinstated, says John. This regarding moors. Well, I don't think anybody else has moved into the building since the last owners sold up, so presumably, and I don't think anybody's applied for a change of use. No snazzy flats going in the old smokehouse. We'll see. A classic herring dish, says Nigel. Prime steak, cut of meat with brandy pepper sauce and herring mashed potato. With the combination of pepper sauce and herring is absolutely wonderful. We served it on the dining car a few years ago. Prime steak cut of meat with a brandy pepper sauce and herring mashed potato. We could call that Manx surf and turf, couldn't we? So steak with a brandy pepper sauce and herring mashed potato. Have you had that? I've never had that. Have you? Eddie's with us now. Hi, Eddie.
Hiya, you all right?
Good, thanks.
Good. Just to add to the debate about where we get our future power from, I think it was either Thursday or Friday of last week, I watched a programme on the One Show, and the item was about a place called Knoydart Island. Have you ever heard of it?
Whereabouts is it?
It's the west coast of Scotland.
Okay.
And the article was on about how they were fed up with the national grid, so they decided to go their own way. They have a small reservoir on the island and rivers, and as a result, they now are totally independent with water power. The actual device for generating electricity was no bigger than a big garden shed, and that did hundreds of people power. So, there's just one thing that I keep sort of emphasising that we should be going water, and there's a perfect example. And the people were celebrating. And I think we should look into these things a lot more than what we are.
Well, everything's got to be looked into nowadays, so this is one more thing to consider. But hydroelectric, we've got a tiny hydroelectric unit up by Sulby Reservoir. So do you think that would take, remember we got 85,000 people do you mean as some sort of backup or to use as a primary source, Eddie?
Well, what I'm thinking is, if we were thinking on the right lines of for future green, using this word green all the time, I did tell you about the Golden Meadow Mill, didn't I, at Castletown?
Yeah.
I've seen firsthand just how much water you need to drive enormous amounts of machinery. My thinking is when the dam was built, it was never utilised to its full capacity because some of the turbines didn't fit. But that can be re-looked at again and get as many turbines as they can in there And also, the one thing that I was looking at with another article I read is that once you've used that water, it can be used again, again, and again, and again. So if you have, say, the Sobe Dam, you can either increase it a little bit or put another one in front of that, and then another one in front of that, because we do have the space up there, and you could have 2 more small dams to catch the water, and in turn, more generators. So long term, we could actually do everything we want on the whole island. I mean, that article about the Noidart Island, I think he said something like a bath of water to drive it. And that is a trickling stream.
Okay.
So we've got lots of streams.
All right.
And lots of potential power. What do you reckon, Andy?
It's for people far more qualified than me to make decisions, but at the moment we have lots of decisions to make regarding our future sustainable electricity supply, and this is one of them. At the moment we seem, focused on wind power.
Yeah, we need to look at the other ones. Just hold fire with the wind farms. Everything seems to be going wrong. I think Julian mentioned earlier on that the shares are going down and down again. But, the main thing that really annoys me is the way they've been saying it's green, and it is not green. So let's halt things and just do a U-turn and study the others. There's no rush to make a mess.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Eddie. Good to hear from you. All right, 12 minutes before 1 on Manx Radio. Any thoughts? Your favourite herring recipe? Where we go in the future?
Andy Wint, the nation station, Manx Radio. Just Care Products for mobility solutions.
Visit Just Care Products right behind B&Q and see our wide range of mobility aids, from small everyday items to rise recline chairs, beds, scooters, and our airline-friendly foldable power chair. Plus, we are the island's only stockists of cosy feet footwear. Just Care Products right behind B&Q.
Just Care Products, 627 177.
Mike has got the Conister feeling. Because despite his busy life, getting the finance to sort some home improvements was quicker and easier than he ever dreamt with Conister Bank.
You got me feeling good, got me feeling good, got me feeling good, got me feeling good, yeah!
Ooh, and not even Conister can help improve his singing. Apply online today at conisterbank.co.in and you'll get the Conister feeling too. All loans are subject to status. Terms and conditions apply. Early settlement fees apply.
Come on. Oh, not again. We need to go to Athol.
They only do Nissan.
Oh, don't be daft. They service and repair all makes and models.
Main dealer prices, though.
Our Nathan says it's not just about the cost per hour, as what one technician does in 3 hours, Athol might do in 1. And you get a courtesy vehicle.
Look at that. Told you we needed to come to Athol.
Oh, be quiet and drive.
Hoptunay is on its way, and all next week on Manx Radio, you could be a winner as we play The Devil is in the Detail. All you have to do is go to manxradio.com and work out our Devil in Disguise. There'll be a different one each day, and at the end of the week, we'll give away a Hoptunay hamper from ShopRite, crammed full of spooktacular goodies, just in time for the 31st of October. The Devil is in the Detail, all next week here on Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And Bonzo. Hi, Bonzo.
Yes, all this talk about herring. Yes, I think we can get in on another trick here. A very high added value herring product called surströmming.
Called what?
Oh, surströmming. It's Swedish.
Oh, yeah.
For sour herring. A lightly salted, fermented Baltic Sea herring. They catch it just prior to their spawning in April and May, and then they put just enough salt and barrels, containers, whatever, to prevent the raw herring from rotting, whilst allowing it to ferment. The fermentation process of at least 6 months gives the fish a characteristic strong smell and somewhat acidic taste, and indeed a newly canned surströmming has one of the most putrid food smells in the world, even stronger than similarly fermented fish dishes such as the Korean honogoe, the Japanese kusaya, or the Icelandic hakiri. And apparently, because of the royal ordinance from Sweden that doesn't allow the possibility of incompletely fermented fish, essentially they have to be fermented for a year or over. And there's a kind of Beaujolais Nouveau Day for this stuff called the annual premiere, and it's the third Thursday in August.
Well, this sounds fantastic. This is the, genuinely, I think the Isle of Man's got a chance here to do something with this. I'm no doubt the DEFRA or people within there are dreaming something up for the food festival next year. But I think it's a big thing.
Well, that's the kind of thing cruise ships would buy in, and other people, restaurants, high-end Michelin star restaurants across, etc., would buy in, I'm sure.
Have you ever tried it?
No, I've been itching to try it, actually. But the thing is that it's the opening of the can that's the problem. Apparently you have to open it underwater.
Otherwise what?
You have to put it underwater. Otherwise, that stops the smell. Otherwise the smell is, it's a bit of a biohazard.
So it tastes a lot better than it smells.
Oh, yes, very much so.
Sounds delightful. Bonzo, I appreciate that. Thanks for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
Good to hear from you. It's a big day today as far as the post office, because today, the 16th of October, airmail goes. The dedicated aircraft used to convey mail between the UK and the Isle of Man finishes today, the 16th of October. Apparently it won't affect the vast majority of people. Do you feel affected? Guaranteed next day service for priority mail to the UK is maintained because they're using it through a scheduled airline, but no more mail plane anymore. And also the new Track 48 product to the UK is introduced for if you're using it commercially for the point of delivery insurance coverage up to £150. But the mail plane has absolutely gone after today. And also, well done to Conister Bank. Conister Bank. For the first time ever, an Isle of Man-based bank has got a UK deposit-taking licence. A significant shift in the sector between the Isle of Man and the UK. And how about that? That Conister Bank has got a UK deposit-taking licence. About time Manx fishermen are able to fish herring again. We always had them either fried in butter or soused. Taste absolutely fabulous, says Andy. Never mind the main road, says this correspondent. Let's stop racing community using Ayrton Road and Mount Rule Back Road before someone is killed. Now, for the vast majority of people, speeding, if you like, boy racers, girl racers, middle-aged racers, doesn't affect. If you live there, so if you're around Ayrton Road and Mount Rule Back Road, this could be life-threatening for you. And, of course, it's always too late when something goes wrong. So what do? Do we bite the bullet? Do we put speed cameras on the Isle of Man? 50 mile an hour the limit is through Greba, says Malcolm. I think we should put cameras on every traffic light, says 276. Who voted in favour of charging for memorial plaques? It's noted on council ministers that Councillor Skinner recorded his vote against charging, says James. Well, you can check the council minutes. Just go to the Douglas City Council website. But that's James's view, and he says that Councillor Skinner voted against charging. Presumably, everybody voted for it. Thanks also to Joe, who said Williston speeding and parking total free-for-all. The shortcuts to avoid St Ninian's Light, work vans, HGVs, but also the UCM through traffic, speeding day and night, buses literally crawling through a parking maze, cars parked blocking footpaths in an attempt to make the roads passable. It is a nightmare around Williston. As everywhere else, we'll wait for accidents to happen before things are addressed. Now, remember, later on this week on Mannin Line, we're talking to Visit Isle of Man. Deborah Heather and Ranald Caldwell are on Mannin Line this coming Wednesday. We're going to talk about, well, we used to call it tourism. Now it's Visit Isle of Man. It sits inside the Department for Enterprise. Deborah Heather's the chief exec. Ranald Caldwell is the chair. So we're open line tomorrow. But if you've got any thoughts about tourism, Visit Isle of Man. If you're in the industry, or maybe you have some friends who pass some opinions about the Isle of Man, complimentary or critical, we'd like to hear it on Wednesday. In the meantime, you can get in touch out of hours, 682-631 for the answer phone, manninline@manxradio.com on the email. Thanks to Ben on the phones today.
WINT